Tao's and I'm an artist presenting my work here at Daraya Biennial. Today it wasn't a workshop by me, it was a workshop by my alter ego, Super Tau's, who's a superhero from Dagestan. She's one of my aunts in a way. So what happened earlier here was a workshop by her where different kids were invited to think about what their superhero can be. So she shares kind of her adventures. Then they kind of fill in short questionnaire about favorite things of a superhero, names, animals, attributes, colors, and then they make it. And it's usually very different in the making. And it's very interesting kind of to talk to them about it, because some of them say that it's a couple of kids made villains. Some of them say that they kind of live together with those heroes. Some of them say like that's sort of, you can tell that that's them and that's how they communicate it. So there are these kind of interesting parallels, but also interesting way of empowering kids. And I think that's kind of the most important, and kind of just letting them dream a little bit outside of kind of cliches of what we consider superheroism. And this is how she came about. Like, I've traveled to Iran, and in Tehran I met this amazing superhero, Super Sapra, who's an alter ego of an artist and curator, Saprab Kashani. And basically what he does, he has no superpowers. He just wears a superhero costume and like sometimes fails, sometimes succeeds. But what his artwork or figure does, it gives us a much more realistic representation of masculinity, which is kind of different, you know, and can be different. It doesn't have to be hyper masculine all the time. And also gives us a very different hero that does not embody a military complex in the powers, but just embodies an effort. When I met him, I was like, oh, I can also have a superhero. I can also have an alter ego. And I actually have a work called Endeavor where I push against a rock for 15 minutes and nothing happens. And then 5 years later, Super Tau's comes into picture. I'm like, oh, but there is a woman. There's a woman that is able to push things, that is born super strong. So in a way, it's also an invention of a hero to do things that you cannot. And it's also a way of just working through powerlessness in certain moments of life, history, reality. I think Super Tau's role within this workshop and kind of the connections she's trying to build is to give a few tools, to give kind of a different stream of information of what she does, so these kind of parallel universes. Also kind of to recognize the labor and the power of women that surround them, because she's also an embodiment of that. She's an embodiment of all my female relatives in Dagestan that just get on with it. You know, it's like, there's no time for not getting on with it. So I think it's giving tools and listening to what comes out. And I hope it kind of continues in a way, their dialogue, I guess, with their heroes and maybe with their needs that they manifest through creating those heroes. I mean, there was one girl, she made a heroine whose power was to cheer people up no matter what. I think art, for imagination of children, art can be that space where they preserve that sort of constant wonder, constant curiosity, but also kind of this thing that everything is possible, because we're sort of like, we get shrunken by limits constantly. And the reason I love art is that you can do anything there. In a way, I think it's the preservation of this open space, which I think generally very important for learning. What excites Super Taos when she does these workshops is the slowness and the wonder. And I think it's also this thing where you don't try to push a child into this like, oh, is this what it is? Write this down. So I think there's only it's very important to keep this nuance where you don't project that, you know, your favorite color should be your football team or your national flag or something like that. You know, when you kind of give that space without naming things, and they just sort of like, also without absorbing things that they hear, and they search inside. So I think it's this kind of moment of search inside and this moment of communicating that search inside, because to me the most favorite bit is when they finish their heroes and I get to talk to them. And that's when they say like, oh, it's an Akum woman, she's friends with sharks. Oh, like this hero is just flying. I was like, does she ever sleep? No. I was like, oh, so it's also boundless energy inside. She was like, yes, it's boundless energy inside. So I think for me, that's the biggest takeaway and kind of the best conversation of the workshop. Yeah.